turn of the century Main Street. Downtown Keene, New Hampshire. This is City Hall of our fair community. The forefathers who planned the community were very smart in that they created a very wide Main Street. Many other towns here in New England have a very narrow Main Street. This one, they had a lot of foresight. This is the city courthouse for Keene. Right across from the courthouse is this block with a Coca-Cola sign and Edward Jones Investments. But it wasn't always Edward Jones. It used to be something else, like a drugstore. Some of these shots of this quintessential New English Main Street should seem somewhat familiar to those of you who are fans of movies. For those of you who do like the movies, this right behind me was part of a big one that was shot right here in Keene. Can you guess which one it was? We're going to take a look at the various sites on this grand street. Keene, Main Street, USA. And if you haven't figured it out yet, we're talking about the movie Jumanji, starring Robin Williams. It took place in what they called Branford, New Hampshire, 1969. But it was filmed much later than that, obviously. Hi there, how are you?
Come back, Bob. Like, no, I'm sorry, I'm working right now.
They're a handsome couple. It's right here at this corner where the first shot started to take place of the main body of the movie. There was the prequel, or the pre-setup of the movie. Then the date was introduced, and this street was filmed right behind me with a traffic cop directing traffic. Today we have street lights. No need for a traffic cop. Of course there were street lights back then, there was no need, but they didn't really show that. The camera would have been placed right about there where that tree and trash can are for view right down that street there, which is Court Street, because frankly that's where the courthouse sits. It would have been right along these shops where young Alan was riding his bicycle. There's the barber shop. There was a barber out front sweeping. Right along these shops here. Then when he came to this corner, he cut across the street and the traffic cop that was standing here stopped the traffic for him. That camera would have been placed right about where this stoplight is, right here. And they would have been filming behind where I am now. This would have been the scene. The traffic cop stopped and let the young Alan ride right through here. Now, the director of Jumanji, I don't think he liked the fountain there. He probably thought it was a little ugly. Thought it should be more of a monument. So he erected a false monument to cover the fountain, but the outside rim was still shot in the movie. As a matter of fact, they used it as a reveal of Alan's bike coming around, and hiding behind that fountain, or the statue as it was at the time. There was a statue with a horse and rider on top of it. Hiding behind there were the bullies on their bicycles about to give chase to Alan. So there would have been a horse and rider right here on top of a monument covering this fountain area, and it would have panned down. Those buildings would have been hidden right about here, and then Alan would have ridden his bike around the corner, followed by the bullies coming out from behind the corner. It was at that point that they switched to a scene of a lawnmower and the kids riding through a neighborhood, which was not filmed here in Keene. That was probably on the studio backlot. So So here's a different perspective of what the street really would look like. Right where all those cars are going through, you know, with the pair of shoes shine in the background, that's where he would have cut across the street and the cop would have let him go. And then he would have just come right up that walkway and right past this monument or fountain area right here. Of course, the Civil War soldier is still here. That was a real monument, as is a Christmas tree that they erected for the holidays. There's the courthouse and the gazebo, which actually the movie people built the gazebo for Keene so they could put it in the movie. Over to the corner. Then way over here is where the original camera location would have been, shooting up Court Street. So after that, much later in the movie, they've been separated. Sarah, the children, and have been separated from Alan, adult Alan, played by Robert Williams, and they're standing here and they're off to go find an ATM machine. So the cameraman and this camera and all this other staff would have been right about where this truck was, just off the curb, I think, and that would have been focused right here on them. And this is the view that the actors would have seen, with the exception of all the camera gear right in front of them, of course. So right there at the Chamber of Commerce was right where we just were, and that's where they were standing, and the camera would have been right about here. And they're off to find an ATM, and they walk off camera going that direction, but the ATM they find is in an alleyway right down here. This is where the magic of movie making gets put into play, because things are not always as they seem. We have to come all the way down Main Street here to a little alleyway where they installed a fake ATM. So it was in this alleyway where they actually built a fake ATM, and it would have been right there where on this corner right here, right by the newspaper box, right next to Tivoli and Steiner. And then this building over here on the left was like an appliance store at the time. So the camera would have been right behind me here where I'm standing, and it would have been focusing down the alleyway that way. That would have been about the shot. We would have had to put it up pretty high on a scaffolding. Right here would have been the ATM. It was a little bump out that they built and put in a fake machine in there, and the three of them would have been standing here when all of a sudden there was a close-up of Peter holding the game and a couple of hands grabbing the game, and lo and behold, standing right here would have been Van Pelt with the game. Right there is where he would have been standing, the appliance store, which is changed into something else now. And that's where the ATM machine was. This would have been the view he had, and this would have been the view they had. But that didn't make it on camera. I can see why. Oh, and by the way, right up here is the Wall Dogs painting of Dr. Albert C. Johnston, right above where Van Pelt was standing. Of course, then it's when the panicked crowds come around the corner and distract them, and Peter grabs the game and bolts. So now they move the camera from back there in the alley out here to about where these parking spots are. It's here that they film Peter coming out from around the corner in the alley, running, heading this way back to the center of Keene, actually to the plaza, this traffic circle up there. Remember, that's about where the camera would have been, and this is what Peter would have seen as he was coming out, running down the street. Of course, once they finish with the bank teller machine and Peter grabs the board and runs out around the corner there, then they switch to a scene by the Coca-Cola sign, which is way down there by the courthouse. Right after he leaves the alley, we see him running with this Coca-Cola sign behind him, right about there. Chiginas, right across the street from the courthouse. And up the street from where the alleyway was. I guess it made a better shot. Then we moved the camera back from over there, that position, where they were filming across the street, way over here to the main drive. And Peter's coming from this direction. He gets stopped by that red car right there. Well, maybe not that one, but there was a red car right here that stopped it. Is later given a ramming by the Rhino. So here we are back at the street corner, and it's here that Peter is standing in front of the red car, but suddenly he sees coming up Court Street the stampede. And so he runs over here and he stops another car, which they bail, and he gets into the car to get protected from the stampede, like all these other cars that are coming. And about where those trucks are going by. Use your imagination with the trucks. It would have been the elephant going over the top of the car. Of course, the stampede came from Court Street, right where the traffic is coming from right now. The Rhino comes out, hits the red car, and then the elephant comes by, tramples over the top of the car as the animals run past. They all turn, they all go down Washington Street that way, which this is actually more of a V. Of course, that was all CGI, not real animals. This is probably where they put the camera, somewhere right in here. And it's from this angle right here that we see Peter running to get into the car. You can see that building behind him, although it's kind of bokeh'd in the movie. But hey, look, that building's for sale. So if you wanted to own a piece of Jumanji, you could buy that building. This would have been the view that Bradley Pierce saw as he was laying in that car, looking down Main Street as it was crushing down on top of him. Actually, that was probably all done in a special effects studio. They also put a camera over here to get a shot of the car from that direction. Of course, this would have been the scene with a close-up of the car being crushed by the elephant from this direction. And then, through the magic of Hollywood, we see the crushed car move from that spot all the way to this intersection. So they moved the car to about here somewhere. They probably set the camera up somewhere right here on this sidewalk and face it that way. And it's right about here they shoot an image of Van Pelt heading straight for Peter in the crushed car. There would have been a green awning over what's now the whorehouse. And then there's a scene of Van Pelt taking the game away from Peter and him walking away from the car. That was not shot in Keene. I can't find that location anywhere here. It must have been shot somewhere else in the city that looks similar. The next thing we see is Sarah and Judy, played by Bonnie Hunt and Kristen Dunst, running from across the street to get Peter out of the car and save him. And he says, "I've lost the game. Van Pelt took the game. And all hope seems lost. They may be doomed to live this life forever." All seemed lost as Van Pelt walked down West Street. The final shot that we see in Keene, they put the camera about here in the center of the street and they looked down West Street. It was right down West Street here that we see Van Pelt walking away with the game, heading towards Sir Save-A-Lot, which is not in Keene. So behind me is Main Street, that's West Street, that's Court Street. There's the Christmas tree, and that's Washington Street with City Hall behind me. Looking that way, that's the other side of Main Street. And if you turned right on Main Street, you'd go down Roxbury Street. That's where the movie Jumanji, or at least the on-location section, took place, with the stampede and the bike ride. At the time that Robin Williams passed away, people of the community came and laid flowers at the bottom of the Parish Shoe sign. And there they sat for weeks. A memorial to the great comedian and a great man who we all love. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I certainly enjoyed walking around, looking at the different sights and the views that the camera would have seen, where they would have put the camera. And I know my version is probably an approximation, because like when they put the camera out in the middle of the street, I'm not going to walk out there with all this busy traffic going around, you know. Anyways, I hope you'll click the thumbs up and like us. Pardon me. And subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.